I grew up in Montana, and I saw something traverse up a rock slide a mountain away. So I'm on the top of a mountain, down the valley and up the other side, and something went up the side of this rock slide that even through my scope, it looked like a man in a ghillie suit with long hair on a ghillie suit. It covered too much ground too fast over these Volkswagen-sized rocks to have been any man that I've ever known. And that still is very unsettling for me. And you don't go back and tell a story like that and have people think, you know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of American Grit with myself, Tim Jensen. And we have got a doozy, jam-packed show for you today. We're talking about the strange, the creature that lives in the woods. You might have heard about him. You might have heard him in particular if you're camping out in those strange areas off the grid and trying to survive. I'm talking about Bigfoot, my friends. And my friend Russell Acord is with us today. You might know him from the Discovery show, Expedition Bigfoot. But I know him as a United States military veteran and a great individual that is out there doing incredible things, writing books, telling stories, and sharing with us the incredible things of the great outdoors. Welcome to the show, Russell. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, Russell, I'm just going to jump right into it.
Sure.
Is Bigfoot real?
I believe it's real. I believe in the possibility. I've seen some really, really compelling evidence, heard some good stories from, credible people.
Yeah.
But, and so, even some of my own evidence. I know you're real. You're right in front of me,
Sure.
putting off a heat trace, I hear your heartbeat, that kind of thing. I can actually pluck a hair and get DNA. But I've never had that much evidence at one single location to where I would sit in front of you and guarantee it's real.
Yeah.
So until I hit that point, I believe in the possibility. I've seen some really great stuff, but I can't put a nail in it yet.
Yeah, it's still like aliens.
Yeah.
Right. Until the government just comes out and says we've got him.
It holds one up.
Sure. He's got a bag on his head.
Right. A number.
Hold a number. Perp walk on him. The whole thing. It almost. You ever see the movie Strange Wilderness?
I have not.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah?
It's a slapstick comedy, but the whole movie is about this guy that takes over this wilderness show from his old man, right? And his old man dies, and he's got to find a way to make this show popular on like public programming. And he's like, what is it going to be? And he finally figures out we're going to go find Bigfoot, right? And the whole movie is them trying to find this and fund this little troop of individuals that make this show. And they finally find him, and I don't want to ruin the movie for you, but it is hilarious what they do to the Bigfoot.
I can relate to looking for Bigfoot. I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be some, the thing that I don't understand, right? Going back to like the, aliens and things of that nature, right? Is we live in the 21st century. We've got cameras that can, look to, 8 galaxies away.
Right.
Right. But we always get the grainiest, shadowiest, fuzziest video on all things extraterrestrial, paranormal, or Bigfoot related. Why do you think that is?
No, there's a lot of theories on that. A lot of people say that either Bigfoot or aliens or those sort of things. It's like nobody questions when you grab a compass and there's a needle that points the same direction no matter where you're at in the U.S.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we be able to assume that those types of entities have either they mess with your electronics, they mess with your equipment, that sort of thing, or some people even have said, radioactive type material that doesn't allow either good readings, good pictures, good focus, that sort of thing. I don't know. There's numerous theories on that, so who knows? Who knows?
Right? I mean, I'm like, I don't know. I recently saw, like within the last month, the Bigfoot on the hillside from the two in the train.
The Colorado train tour.
Right? It's all like the fanciful side of me, my imagination wants to tell me, you know what, Tim, there are trillions of acres of land in the United States and North America that has not even been walked on by modern today Americans.
Right.
the idea is, I mean, it's certainly there. I mean, it's a possibility.
Long before you and I were born, hundreds of years ago, through pictures, history, stories, legends, this has been an ongoing thing forever.
Right.
And that's plausible. Everything about it is plausible. The hillside thing in Colorado, part of the tour on the train is, they say, hey, maybe we'll even spot a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So when you throw that out there and you put people on a train, I'm so sorry. But even when I watch the video, okay, you watch the video and I get hundreds of these a year to dissect and decide what my opinion is. And my opinion can be wrong as quick as the next guy. But when I see around the legs of this thing as it walks, there's, like you and I wear pants, our skin moves with our legs,
right,
but our pant leg doesn't. So if you watch around the legs of this thing, or around anything that would be a seam or a wrinkle in the costume,
right,
it shows on that one.
Oh, sure.
And then later on, the people in Colorado actually came forward and said, that's kind of part of our tour. It was. So a lot of people are very disappointed in that.
I'm just like I just all the way down.
I'm so sorry. And I'm out. And
it's back in the 1800s and the carpetbaggers and the
yeah. I'm sorry I ruined it for you.
But that's the enigma. But you're a logical person, right? You get a pretty prestigious background. You're logical. You're a rational thinker. Yet you're pursuing these things. You're part of the show. You're lending your intelligence. You're lending yourself to these expeditions. Mm-hmm. There's got to be something that is clawing at you. Is it the curiosity of wanting to find out if it's true or not, or what's keeping you on the path to do this over and over and over again, knowing that there's more hoax out there than there is fact?
What fuels my fire on this is, like I said, the historical legends, the history that was long before we ever came along. Also, when you have somebody look you in the eyes and you can see that it changed their dynamic forever, what they saw, what frightened them, or their whole belief system, and these are credible, honest people that say what they saw, and I have to give them credit for that. I can't just say, well, everybody's full of crap.
Yeah.
There's a few out there that when they're telling you a story, it's really hard not to get caught up in, okay, you got to stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
But then you have a lion's share of people that are, the stories that they tell are real.
Yeah.
And they, like from grandpa to dad to, what they've seen today. And some really amazing things. But for me, as a kid, I grew up in Montana, and I saw something traverse up a rock slide a mountain away. So I'm on the top of a mountain, down the valley and up the other side, and something went up the side of this rock slide that looked, even through my scope, it looked like a man in a ghillie suit, with long hair on a ghillie suit. But it covered too much ground too fast over these Volkswagen-sized rocks to have been any man that I've ever known.
Right.
And that still is very unsettling for me. And I mean, I was a teenager, or late teens at the time, and you don't go back and tell a story like that and have people think, Yeah. But even before then, I always wanted to know if it was real because I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film from '67.
Right.
And that was a pretty cool video.
Yeah. To this day, still being observed, still being picked apart, run through many different new technological filters. They're still finding that it's unexplainable.
I've been working with Bob Gimlin for quite a few years now. And he's 92 years old, still cognizant, still crystal clear, heck of a guy. But this man will look you in the eye. His story has not changed since 1967, from the last detail to every piece of it. And when you first see it, the first thing I want to do is I watch that video, and the first thing I want to do is tear it apart. Well, that could be a guy in a suit. Everybody says that at first. But I've been to the site in California where this film was taken. Cobblestone is, if you try to run across cobblestone today, you're going to break ankles, knees, and you're going to go crashing down quick. The creek bed was cobblestone, number one. So for us to just be able to get across that would be challenging, with good mountain boots on. This thing walked seamlessly across this surface, not looking at its feet, not looking where it was placing its steps, just walked and looked over its shoulder at the guys filming because it was something that was in the creek bed with them.
Yeah.
And if you think about just on that alone, if I were going to try to pull that off, you put clown feet on, big feet to make it look like your feet are larger. Try doing that on a sidewalk, let alone cobblestone, and do it flawlessly and smooth as that thing covered that area. Number two, a costume. Even by today's standards, the Mission Impossible costumes that go on the guy's face and it's all the way up against the eyelids. But back then,
Yeah.
can you imagine something that's not stuck to your face so clear? You still have to have the head down to see past it where you're placing your feet. Not once did this thing look at where its feet were being placed. Not once. And then you can see the muscle movement. And I've listened to Dr. Meldrum break this thing down year after year. And I trust him. I accept his knowledge base. And he says that what is on that film is real. So how do you step back from that and think and have doubt?
Well, it's 2023. I've come to say that I don't question anything anymore, and I'm starting to believe things at surface value.
There you go.
Because I do want to believe. I do want to believe that there's Bigfoot, because that's fancy. That's fantastic that there's other things on this planet that are humanoid that can walk upright and that have been able to escape our attention for at least 200 years.
I don't think we've scratched the surface.
Oh no,
I think there's so much more out there that we've yet to see.
Oh yeah, I mean,
that we're going to
only maybe even looked at 5% of the ocean, right, in terms of its totality.
That's a lot of surface area,
right? And we're now like going into space, and we understand those frontiers.
Right.
What other fathom that we can put our brain to, but like so. It gets into the question of how big the aperture. So if a Bigfoot exists, does a Loch Ness Monster exist?
I believe that is just as plausible.
Yeah.
Especially because of that much area on this planet that we can't see.
Right.
That we can't get close to. We're not equipped to go freely like we can on the mountains.
Right.
Anybody can walk the mountains. You don't have to have special gear. You go a certain level below the surface of the water, and you better know what you're doing, or you pressurization, oxygen, there's so many variables that the depths are insane.
Yeah.
And what's down there, I mean, we can't see everything that's on the surface above. How are we going to see everything below the surface of the water?
Yeah. Yeah. We always see on whatever news site you go to, like every once in a while that fish that comes up from 20,000 feet below, that washes up on the shore, has no eyeballs, black, and the little light that comes up.
Never seen it before. Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely fascinating. So, you've been doing this for how many years?
Since the 70s.
70s.
Yeah. I just dated myself, didn't I?
Well, my goodness. So for the last 40 plus years, you've been on the hunt.
Yeah.
What is I'm not going to ask you, you probably get what's the best story all the time. I want to hear the most absurd story that you've ever come across.
There's so many to choose from. I'll give you one real quick. A guy, it was this not long ago, a guy told me that his dog got killed by a Bigfoot, and that he was in the woods and he saw this thing standing, 12, 15 feet away. He said it was 12 feet tall, looked like a big giant man covered in hair. And the dog ran up to it to bite at it. And this creature grabbed his dog and scratched it apart.
Yeah.
And he said, and the way he described it is it pulled the ribs and all that kind of thing. He said 5 claw marks right down the side of this dog. Look at how my hand is designed. I can only do 4 claws at a time. I mean, honestly.
Sure.
What about a bear?
On its hind legs.
Yeah, so it's difficult to just the way he said it. And I said, well, what did you do with the dog? And he said, well, I buried it. I said, well, you didn't try to get any DNA or anything beyond that. What did this thing do to you? He had no story from when it grabbed the dog and pulled it apart to, did it drop it? Did it throw it? Did it look at him? Did it run away? Did it vanish? That sort of thing. It was too open-ended, nothing to it. And one of the other stories I heard just a couple weeks ago, somebody shows me this picture of this pine tree in snow. And he said, look, there's Bigfoot right there. And I didn't see what he was seeing.
Yeah.
I was trying to be nice. And he said it was 15 feet away from me, just right there in the snow. I said, how tall was it? He said, 7 feet tall. So I'm listening, thinking, okay, that's plausible. It's not like 20-foot tall Bigfoot, you know. And I said, this is the only picture you got? He said, well, yeah. He said, as soon as he saw me, he just took off running. I said, well, show me the footprints in the snow. Oh, there wasn't any. It's like, okay, you just lost me. We're done.
I mean, do you think a lot of people just reach out to you for I'm gonna make up the story and try to get on TV?
Who knows? But the thing is, you get the stories that are, insanely detailed and credible, and the people that they're talking to, it's like, I don't want anybody to know I'm saying this because I'm a county deputy, and this is what I saw.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting.
No, it's like a pilot that sees something flying when they're on a Chicago to Tampa flight.
Right.
No, I'm not going to say anything about that.
Yeah.
I just see
What was that? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So 70 years. So how did you get into the field? What?
Same thing. I think everybody else. That Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my parents took the family to the theater and watched that Roger Patterson, Bob Gimlin, Bigfoot story.
Yeah.
And, it had that iconic howl and that, the thing walking across river bottoms. And I, as a kid, I'm watching this thing, and I want to say fearless, but I was dumb. I wasn't smart enough to really be afraid of anything back then. And my dad was one of these guys that we always lived, way off the beaten path, away from people. He had, there were 7 kids, the 2 of us, and 2 boys. So you're sitting at a table of 9 people.
Yeah.
So we always lived way off, the county roads and that sort of thing. And it was like the moment we got back, I would just get home from school Friday night, and Mom, I'll be back Sunday night. And I was out in the woods.
Yeah.
It was just my playground growing up. And the hunt was on. I figured if there was something out there, I had to see it. I wanted to see it for myself.
Yeah.
So forever.
Yeah, I love it. And I can appreciate that because I think back to my childhood and that big imagination of the world in front of you. Like, I can go out into the wood and do anything, right? Play war with my friends, build a tree fort, whatever the case. Look for Bigfoot, tree knocks, howls, all that stuff, right?
We all did it. Yep. Yeah.
So, but there was obviously a point in that, were you doing, excuse me, were you pursuing this as a career, or did you join the military? Like, how did it all in the timeline? When did it all start really to shape into perspective?
Pick a hobby that you enjoy doing. Whatever you do with your life. I mean, nobody can get by without working, without driving a car, without getting insurance and that sort of thing. So it was one of those things, when I had time for it, I was deeply involved.
Yeah.
Weekends, if I wasn't, when you get out of high school, you get distracted, fast cars, pretty girls, just these, whatever distracts you. So for me, it was just, when I wasn't involved in, or had a plan, that was the plan.
Yeah.
Always out in the woods. And you learn your survival instincts. You learn, that every sound in the woods isn't something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard it here. dry leaves and a squirrel runs across the dry leaves, it sounds like a bear galloping at you.
Sure.
And it's a squirrel this big, Oh man. So you learn quick, a lot about being outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is something wild about it, right? The idea of being out there amongst, in that position amongst the animals, amongst the nature and the wilderness itself, right? And you're grounded into the earth, and you're just one with nature, right? I mean, I don't mean to paint poetically about any of that, and I don't know if that really was it, but the idea, it's reconnecting to that tribal, that primal aspect, for men at least, right? That's what I think about going back to my childhood memories of, being out in the wild, the Boy Scouts, all these things really shaped, in my youth into the idea of going into the military, right? Because that was like the graduation, right? Now I get to really I earn a uniform, and I get to do all this stuff that I've been just playing in my mind and my imagination. And then you learn all those survival skills through the Boy Scouts and this, that, and the other. Now you're putting into practical application,
right?
And you land nav.
Now you really need it.
Yeah, the things you really need, right? When you need it most. Survivalism is something that's very big, within the work you're doing on that, and where you're heading next, or where you want to go, right? Is we certainly live in a time where survivalism is absolutely important. What I mean by that is, we live in a highly technical age that the grid, the electrical system can go down at any moment. Fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, all these things are happening in greater circumstances today, and we live in a very high tech, high touch world that survivalism is not necessarily taught any longer, and it's not something that if something were to happen today, I would say a majority of people will not have the skill sets to survive a week in the wild.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
It very is. Very well is for a lot of reasons. From a national security standpoint, right, and down to a personal standpoint. It's like, if I can't live in the woods for more than 2-3 days, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So why? Tell us a little bit why the survivalism is so important for you, and in sharing this with others.
How about a nutshell version of Russ's life here? I'll just start from the beginning and just get into that whole. I grew up, doing my research. I answered the patriotic call. I saw enough going on in the world. I joined the military. Mm-hmm. Did my time in the military, came in infantry, because I knew that was the boots on the ground, the survival bit, the things where you learn a better, more locked in transition of being able to get through moment to moment, making it through, and dealing with very, very adverse circumstances to general to pretty light. And I wanted those skills. I wanted to, that was what I wanted from the military. So I got in for that reason. It also gave me a chance to globally look. I mean, I got to, a couple days off, got to walk around the woods in Japan looking for Bigfoot, Yeah. I mean, everywhere I went, it was just always that whole, when you have a minute to yourself, what are you going to do while you're there? Not so much in the desert, but Japan was amazing. A lot of the places I got to see in the military were great. Served with some of the best people in the world. And you wouldn't expect the leadership and the amazing people that you meet in the military to rise to those occasions. And you build relationships with people that you'd have never dreamed of. You see people coming to the surface that step up to just about every challenge you can imagine.
Yeah.
And you build relationships, you build that brotherhood, you have that, I grew up in a big family, but my family wore a uniform. That was my blood brothers. These were my family.
Yeah.
There was a point when I exceeded the threshold of what the human body can take. And I was retired from the military on a medical discharge, which was probably the big pivot point in my life where it just broke my heart. You go from every day shoulder to shoulder with people that you love, you trust, you count on, and you know that if something goes sideways, there's no question if either side of you, they have your back.
Yeah.
Back into a civilian side where it seems like a lot of people are in it for themselves. You don't have that neighbor trust. You don't have that camaraderie or the same mindset. You walk down the street and you have no idea who, if this is somebody you need to watch out for, be wary of, or somebody that you know is just got it.
Yeah.
So I got out of the military and just kind of transitioned to this civilian that used to have a life a certain way in the military, and you have to be HR correct. As well as I do, in the military, there's no HR. It's like you can tell somebody how you feel and know that they're going to absorb it. They'll react however they react, and you're prepared. Whether it's out of love, kindness, or anger, but once the moment is over, the moment is over. Got into the civilian side and went to college, military. Since I was out on a medical, they offered me, scholarship, military, and I was not about to let them down. I chose a career that after some research, I found out what we really needed, dove into that portion of it, that safety and health side of it, to where I could be helpful to people, not damaging. I could be more using my mind than my body because my body had already taken enough abuse. And the more you're in an environment like that, in heavy construction, watching people making mistakes and getting hurt, not getting hurt, being smart enough to get out of it, you start processing this whole, what happens if, what will you do when, or what happens if we lose all power? What happens if you have a collapse over here? What happens if this building comes down? How do you pull the building apart and get the people out? How do you get past an electrical outage or an earthquake or a flood? And you're starting to stare at these catastrophic events. I'm not talking war. I'd already seen that side
Right.
of it. And you train yourself for those sorts of things. And only the people that train themselves seem to, it's like U.S. military trains to handle these situations, but there's a whole side of this population that is not trained to handle military events. But sadly, they're not trained to handle a catastrophic event, an earthquake, a flood, a fire,
Or just an emergency in general.
at all.
Yeah.
And there was something that hit me a couple of years ago, and it broke my heart. You watch this stuff. The towers came down, and people didn't know how to react to that. The tsunami happens, and how many people did we lose?
Yeah, what was it, 200,000 people died, and
200,000 families lost somebody,
yeah,
or entire families wiped out. And you think about that. Where did we go wrong? How were we not prepared for that without either an early warning system or a plan? Nobody had a plan.
yeah,
And it hit me in the face hard a couple of years ago. I was with, on the show, I have a cameraman named Zach Hall, one of the ex-military. And I went to Kentucky to see him. We did some filming there just for our own. And I'm standing on a slab, concrete slab, where a house used to sit. And 30 feet above me was the water line that took that house away in a moment's notice. 60 minutes, it was below the porch of the house. 60 minutes later, the house was gone. Took the people with it. They thought they had more time, and it happened so quick. In that little tiny town, there's a little small space in Kentucky, lost over 30 people from a flood. They lost power for weeks, lost their homes, decimated this whole valley. And it got me really processing this whole survival thing. What happens, and I ask a lot of people, I love asking this question, if you have 30 seconds to leave your house, what are you going to grab?
me personally?
Yep.
That's a great question. I'm going to grab my go bag that has all my pertinence in it.
Amen. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That military mindset, we have a plan. Start asking people that haven't had the military background that.
Right.
I ask people at conferences all the time, hey, what would you grab if you had 30 seconds to leave the house? Oh, I'd grab the pictures of the grandkids and, the dress you got baptized in, and I'm like, you will die.
What were you experiencing when COVID was going on? What was going through your mind in terms of preparation in the first weeks? Because I'll tell you when it was going on.
This is a rabbit hole, man.
This is paranoia that Tim was experiencing. I set my go bag, everything out. I'm going through inventory. I'm like, hey, my wife's looking at me like, Tim, what are you doing? I'm like, babe, you don't understand. Like, we only have moments, and if none of my stuff is in order, then we will be drastically short-lived. Short-lived, yes. Yeah, and that's what I was experiencing.
Yeah,
and I felt, and I didn't like that at all. I felt like it was just a horrible feeling for me, like going through that. But at the same time, I knew what that needed to be done, right? Because I've gone through this, I've experienced these things. I know, the junk on the bunk, and inspecting my stuff to make sure it's all mission ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was my same mindset. Remember the TV when it would have that tone, and then this is only a test.
Yeah.
And you're starting to think, okay, this is only a test. Good. But then when that COVID hit, you start thinking, this is a test. This is to see how we handle a situation like this. Yeah. Granted, it was. It made everybody sick. I ended up with it. Yeah. Never got a shot, but I ended up with it. Came out the other side. It was crappy for a couple weeks, but it was like it was interesting to see civilian reaction from that, and fell right in line. Yeah. Did exactly as they were told, and that's like scared me.
Dead.
Yeah, it scared me. So I want people to know. I want to start preparing people. I'm not here. I definitely don't want to have people thinking, oh my God, he's just trying to scare us. I'm not trying to scare anybody. Yeah. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm not talking about fighting on U.S. soil. I'm thinking California just experienced 3 weeks of blackout, no electricity. Mm-hmm. Everything in the refrigerator was gone, and they had no power to pump fuel or recharge their electric cars.
Right.
The power grid was down. Kentucky lost, people that if they would have had a bag, or if they would have had something that they already prepared themselves for, if something goes wrong, I have a bag to grab, I know how to use the tools in this bag, and I have a route to walk and to get to safety or to get to where I need to be. How many people do you think really have that?
Nobody does, right?
That's my plan.
I think of remember a few years back, 200 people died on Lakeshore Drive, downtown Chicago, where they're driving snowmobiles up Lakeshore Drive because the snowdrift was so bad, people got locked in their cars, and hundreds of people were like dying in their cars because they didn't know what to do. The fight or freeze came upon them, and they were so ill prepared because none of them had any blankets or a emergency road bag that was in the vehicle that had a flashlight or the basic needs. Like, nobody plans for these things.
Right.
And, you can think about, for those listening with your friends, like, how many of your friends have ridiculed you for being the guy or the girl that is packing, all the things that they need in their car? You're always getting made fun of. So there's no reason to be encouraged to have these things.
Right. And that's where I want to start punching forward and kind of break that whole, it's not funny, it's real.
Yeah.
And have these people realize, and my big thing is, and this hits home to people that have kids, but I've made a video and I didn't post it because it was a little bit too crass for, my persona.
Mass consumption.
But it was, a lot of it was, I looked at the camera and said, dads, if you have a daughter and she doesn't know how to change a tire, she doesn't know how to make sure the fuel tank is fueled before she goes up a pass and down the other side in case she gets locked in a snowstorm. If you have a daughter and you haven't taught her those basic survival skills, you're wrong. Yeah. You're dead wrong. If you have a son, if you have anybody you care about that you're not teaching them how to get past anything, you and I, depending on shape, we could go 3 weeks without food. As long as we have water and the basic necessities. We can go 3 days, give or take, without water. 3 minutes, give or take, without air.
Yeah.
And my challenge, which you'll see when I go online with my survival series, is I want everybody to get it. And I'm going to challenge everybody to walk into their house, find the main breaker, and shut it off for 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. What's your plan? Are you ready? for just 3 days. Your wife doesn't have a blow dryer. You don't have hot water. You don't have a refrigerator. You don't have an alarm clock to set. You don't have lights. Do you have candles to light? Do you have a flashlight? Do you have a means of heating up water without power? Give me 3 days and show me you can do it.
Yeah.
And you know how many people are going to go, I'm not doing that. Why not? Because you're setting yourself up. There's thousands and thousands of Californians that will tell you, boy, I wish I'd have had a plan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, I remember when the freak snowstorm in San Antonio happened here 2 years ago.
I heard about that.
Man, like I come from Chicago, right?
A couple hundred people, right? Lost?
Man, it was a pretty bad experience. You know, the roads here were so iced over, right? That was probably the biggest challenge of the whole situation. Was the icing that knocked out the power grid,
Yep.
and the heavy the weight bringing down the power lines. But Texas is not equipped to salt, sand, or treat the road systems, right? So, what I was experiencing, I would go out and drive around. I have a truck, and I have the Chicago experience of driving in snow, thinking I was prepared. Oh no, far from it. But what I was seeing, what I was experiencing, was it was almost like apocalypse, where people were just abandoning their cars in the middle of the street and walking away from it, and people like staying in their cars for long periods of time because they were just freezing, and they didn't mentally freezing, not knowing what to do because they've never experienced this before,
Right.
or they're just too old or maybe disabled to have a response to it. And now they're in this very dangerous emergency situation that could turn to be life-threatening.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do, right? Do you rely on my phone that is not going to have cell service because the cell service is down? I can't call for emergency services.
Can't YouTube it.
Can't do it. Yeah. I mean, the best thing that's going to do is put that phone underneath my armpit because the radiation might just keep me a little bit warmer.
Maybe.
But when we talk about basic necessities, what is the one thing? If I was to ask you one question, what is the one thing that you think is absolutely in a survival state of mind that you should have on your body or in your bug out kit? The one thing,
Without question.
without question.
A straw for purifying water. You can drink it. You can go 3 weeks without food.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not going to go very far without water.
Very true.
And you have to make sure that what you bring into your body isn't toxic, is clean, and you can go. I mean, we can go to the bathroom anywhere. We can find food. You got 3 weeks to find food. That gives you adequate time to get something to consume in your body.
Yeah.
And depending on your elements, I mean, I would always say water. You have to have water.
Yeah.
And figure out the warm and the dry and the comforts, the snivel gear later.
Yeah.
But you have to have water. Without water, you'll fold up really quick.
Very true. Very true. As important as water is, I would say for myself, and I have at least 3 of them in every one of my bags, is a 10 millimeter socket.
You did not just say that.
Because, my God, I will not be left wondering where the 10 millimeter socket is
Oh my
when
gosh.
I need it most.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't thinking. Sorry.
Oh man, but yeah, I jest and jest. But the straw, water, absolutely important, right? And again, like these are just basic things that we should all be thinking about.
Yeah.
Right? If it doesn't matter if you're a family, if you have a family, if you have children, or if you're just by yourself, right? These are just basic things that we all need to understand. How to start a fire? How do you start a fire when you don't have any of the means to start a fire?
I'm going to do a video on that. I'm going to grab a kid that's 14, 15 years old that's never done it before, make him take his tennis shoelaces off, and I'm going to have him build a fire right there on the video.
Right?
I'm going to teach him how and show him that he can do it. And if he can, anybody can.
Right? And from starting a fire to basic water collection, right? There's the point of purifying water, but how do you if I'm out in the forest and there's no water around me, how do I collect water?
Right.
Well, not many people know how to do that. right? So, I mean, these are all things that, again, like we're not talking about doom and gloom here.
No.
These are just basic fundamentals.
These are things that are our reality now.
Yeah.
It's not about, when I teach survival too, it's not about a Connex full of weapons and bullets and that kind of thing. It's about what your kids can do, what your wife can do, what your daughter can do, what she can grab in a backpack, and how to use the tools to survive and to get to a safer space or to be able to move freely and get out of a dangerous environment and to press on.
Yeah.
You have to have the skill set and the tools in which to do it that aren't going to weigh you down.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about going into austere environments, and I'm sure you've done a lot of this through Expedition Bigfoot, what are you thinking about in regards to, like, all right, well, we're going to the high desert of northern Arizona this week, but next week we got to go to the Appalachians. What are you thinking in terms of gear and just basics that you need to do when you're thinking about those two ends of the spectrum?
Okay, so you're talking me, not my...
Yeah, you.
Okay, not your
Russell,
typical...
the survivalist.
Not the typical spouse. Well, I'd want lip gloss and the foundation
Right.
and tanning lotion.
It reminds me of Spaceballs.
Sunblock. Yeah, you think about... I like to keep it light, which is a load of crap if you realize that my pack that I wear on the show is 92 pounds.
Wow.
92 pounds I carry on my back. It's never been less. But I have gear for specific things that I use. If I have a bug out kit, I'm thinking of keeping it light, being able to move and travel and cover a lot of distance. Definitely be able to, for water consumption, that sort of thing, and protection. So a simple space blanket, if you stay dry, it's easier to stay warm. As soon as you're wet and try to stay warm, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So if you can find a way to stay dry and collect that heat that you need, the body heat. A lot of people don't think it. You're wearing a hat right now, but when you think of how much heat escapes out of the top of your head, a stocking cap, a hat, and be able to hunker down and close in and collapse and keep that heat around the body, for those cold environments, and then being in Arizona and not, being able to find the places you can stay cool. What a drastic change from, like you said, Arizona to, the mountains in the snow. If you have one pack to cover for both of those, you have to be very selective. Space blanket, a means to collect water, a means to stay warm and dry in both environments.
Yeah. We I run a long range sniper competition called Mammoth Sniper Competition.
I've heard about that,
and
we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, and one of the aspects of it, it's a bit of a survival 3-day survival course, right? You have to pack everything that you need to survive 3 days of Mammoth, where you're going to be traversing over 35 miles of land. You're going to be sleeping in the elements, rain, shine, cold, hot, snow, whatever it may be. You're going to need to carry all of your equipment, through the stages. But again, more importantly, you got to pack the food, and you got to make sure that you have all the necessities, socks for your dry feet, and whatever it is that you're going to need to to retain that body heat, right? Because Georgia in the middle of January can get pretty cold.
And enough nutrition to stay sharp.
And that's it, is the nutrition, right? Because you could probably make it, I've seen people go through a fast and perform and make it through Mammoth. It's not pretty, but they are doing it, right? But the people that take a little bit longer to plan and spend their time in their pack and loading out everything that they think that they're absolutely going to consume and use, and not allowing one extra ounce of fat that doesn't, it's not necessary. Like, I see those people cruise through this thing, hands down. So it really comes down to proper planning, to what it is, to the environment that you're going to, and what is it that you need to survive, right, to survive the instance, right? Because survival doesn't, it can be, I can do this easily or I could do it painfully, but I still survived,
Right.
And that's one of the interesting things I've seen about, mammoth. I don't want to get into like the whole mammoth thing, but I find it interesting to see it as a performance use in the civilian marketplace, right? This is, a lot of former military people coming into this and showing others how to do it better.
Right.
But you have a lot of civilians coming into this for the first time, and you're watching them, and you're like, oh, you could see by the pack, like, that guy ain't gonna make it.
Right.
He's gonna be out on day one.
And you're only 3 days, right?
3 days.
That should be a light load.
It should be a light load. Most people get away with, 60, 70 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And they make sacrifices, right? So I see a lot of people sacrifice their habitat, for something else, right? And they're making, and then that decision point comes like, oh fuck, it's 40. It's gonna drop down to 20 to 29 degrees tonight. I don't have a tent that's gonna trap my heat. But I've got this poncho, so I'm gonna drive my rifle into the ground, sacrifice my rifle to prop up something that I could put this little blanket over to trap this heat. Like people are
poncho liner.
Yeah, that blankets, I say.
Yeah.
Poncho liner would be a step in the right direction, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating to see how what the mindset people are using, and coming into this for the very first time. And I think a lot of that when it comes to survival as well is like, this is something that it's just research, and practical application, going out into the woods, testing and trying.
Is it survival or is it comfort camping? I mean, that's what separates them, I would imagine, on your activity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And you're right. You have to give up something. You have to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and element to be able to just kind of get in the moment. If you're not in the moment, if you're too comfortable, that's we've gotten pretty soft.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the comforts, we've counted on all our comforts. Going in the mountains and there's no Starbucks. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Oh, well, now we have 15-minute cities, bro.
Now
The comfort of everything is just a short walk away.
Yeah, DoorDash. Bring me my coffee.
Yeah.
Here's the 8-digit grid. Let's roll.
And these are, again, like these are important conversations to be having.
Yeah.
Because as we continue to urbanize ourselves, and technology becomes more of our lives and consumes more of the things in our everyday. Now we are having to think about AI and T-800s, right? So it's like these are real things.
Terrifying. Yeah.
And as the national security of the world, of the United States, becomes more pressured, conflict, famine, and all these other things that are impacting the world around us, things can go sideways very fast.
In a flash.
And if you're not prepared and your family's not prepared, you have nobody to blame but yourself, and you're going to be a resource draw to somebody else, which is unfair.
Right.
And that's, I think, is probably the most important part of being a student of survivalism is do not be a draw on somebody else's resources.
Agreed.
Be self-sustaining. Put yourself into a position that you're not going to put another person's life in danger because you did not prepare.
Agreed.
And I think that's the takeaway, right?
And the sad thing about survival is the other thing that I struggle with too is when I think about survival, if our grid goes down, it's like I have a backpack that has the elements I need for me as an individual and family as an individual. And it's what it's going to take. I know I can survive 2 months with my backpack, and it's not that big.
Yeah.
And I know that there's enough. If we're as a group, we're going to last a long time and beyond, depending on the resources we can collect once we get out into an area where we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Who checks on the old guys, the old neighbors, the ones that aren't prepared? And that's the part where, your heart struggles with that. You're like, okay, it's each man for himself. I don't know how long this is going to last. Do I sacrifice resources and time and distance from the, what's happening to check on people along the way?
Yeah.
And that's that moral, that's what people will struggle with.
Yeah.
You know, I have a backpack. What do I do about Grandpa? He can't hardly walk. It's like you have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And how heartless is it of me to say that?
You lived a good life, but
Yeah, I know. It's like how do you and that's when it becomes, you know, true survival.
yeah. Yeah. These are the, tough decisions again, it's what are you willing to sacrifice for your own survival?
Because that won't go away either.
Yeah.
That'll be one of those things. Right. And I want to try to get, I want to build an audience around that. I guess that's where, I'm known as the guy from the show, or I'm not known at all. Either way, it doesn't matter. But I do want to be known as and drive traffic towards this teaching, this tutoring, the preparing people, not prepper, not.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question. It's like, what's the difference between survivalism and the things that you're talking about,
right,
versus, a guy that's packing, and stealing resources from everybody else to store, 8 months worth of food in his garage that he's never going to use.
That's the tricky part. So, and I don't want people taking this the wrong way, but you have people that are like these real hardcore preppers. They have a compound built and they've got all this, the wire around the place. They got these Jeeps that they know they can handle it. What happens if they get overrun? All that resources they built will be taken from them.
It's resource transfer.
Yeah, it can happen.
Honestly, you're skylining yourself. I think we all seen Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Ad nauseum.
I want people to be able to be prepared for, and that's like very, very extreme. I want sons, daughters, parents, grandparents. I want people to be prepared for if the grid goes out. I'll see you in 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever it takes for things to come back to normal. If they do, I want to know that you've got the tools to handle that distance to come back to normal. And what happens if it doesn't come back to normal and the grid stays out? I want to know that you have the tools to go beyond that backpack and continue surviving and thrive.
Yeah.
And it's about that. And you can pack a kit, a bug out kit, without a single firearm or without a single bullet and survive. If you choose to carry a firearm, that's individual, preference. I can do it without.
Yeah.
Because it's not about what I'm going to shoot. It's about what I'm going to drink and what I'm going to eat, how I'm going to stay dry and warm. That to me is what survival is.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between, but they are so dangerously paralleled. How are we going to make it past this time?
Yeah. Everybody thinks of this, this morbidly romantic idea of like, oh, the grid goes down. I've got all my guns. It's going to be a firefight. I'm going to be defending this. I'm going to do that, and blah blah blah.
And
blah, blah,
one single bullet will give all those guns to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I don't want it to be about bullets.
Right.
I really don't.
Right. It's like, how do you just sustainment?
Yeah.
Right. Sustain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. I can't.
It's fascinating where the mind goes.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't carry a gun safe with me full of all the really cool stuff.
Right. Right.
I want simplicity and I want knowledge. And even in today's world, no matter where you look, knowledge is what advances you, whether it's technologically or whether it's survival or whether it's just a degree that gets you that better job or that knowledge of a skill set. Without knowledge, and that's the tool.
Yeah.
That is the tool.
Yeah. When we think about like SEER school, right? For all our military listeners are thinking, like, I've never participated in it. I've only, I've known people and I've heard things. But when we think about the big idea of that, it's evasion, right?
Yeah.
In a survival setting, you are not looking to make contact.
Right.
You're looking to evade and stay under the radar for survival.
Yeah.
Right. And, so this idea of like, I'm just going to gear up with a whole bunch of guns and just, I'm going to hold my fort. Like
that'll weigh you down. You won't get anywhere.
Right. That's the risk I'm willing to give up.
Right.
To move distance.
Yeah.
And to make sure they have all the things to sustain myself for, water and energy.
Yeah. I live in a small town, but even there, and the mindset of this small town are just fascinating, wonderful, great people. They have that whole, it's a hardworking community.
Yeah.
These people are just great people that can survive. But then there's a point where you have to break away from the front door of your house and head to the hills. And how do you survive outside the king-size bed with the blankets and the thermostat control, and the refrigerator that you can just walk to every time you want to? I want people to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's the whole challenge, give me 3 days. Shut her down for 3 days and see how you did. And then go out in the woods for 7 days with just your backpack.
Yeah.
See how that works.
Right.
And start training yourself to just deal with things that are not all about comfort and lattes and cell phones. The cell phone, as much as you and I count on our cell phones and our communication, they're probably the deadliest tool we have.
Oh, certainly.
Because everything, my banking's on there, my information is on there. If I need to look up something and figure out how to work like a specialized tool to fix the engine in my car, it's all at my fingertips on this little tiny device. And we interface with those more than we do our own children, families, or anything else. And that's taken away that whole personal touch. And I'm not here preaching, cell phones are bad, but they're slowing us down from the basics of being able to survive, And what do I want to do? I want to build an audience to teach them that on a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's like that double-edged sword. How do I get past it?
It's it's difficult, right?
Right.
Because and that's something we struggle with. We think about that a lot in this business. Is like, man, we know the evils of social media.
Yeah.
Right.
But we rely on it.
But we are completely reliant on it. Right. It's a form of business.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the game you have to play.
Here we are.
Right. And that's so like, but at the same time, it's understanding how to navigate within those systems to ensure that you are getting the best result out of it, and you're doing it in a way that's not hurting people.
Right. Agreed.
And it's just the morals of it all. And and let's be real. Like when survivalism is what everybody's it's the only thing on the menu. Morals takes a back seat.
Right.
And that's another challenge.
Yeah. And it's the hard choices.
Yeah.
It's the decisions you have to make. Who do you take with you? Who goes? Who doesn't? And who do you allow to fend for themselves?
Yeah.
But I in my heart, I always knew that, getting into the military, getting into the career that I've gotten into, where my role in my career is making sure that people are free from harm and they go home the same condition they got there.
Yeah.
I went from typical safety guy, OSHA compliance and safety on a construction site, to nuclear safety, where you still have the same hazards of stuff that can fall on you and crush you, but you also have the invisible hazard of radiation and contamination.
Yeah.
And my role so far has been watch out for these people, teach them how to avoid the pitfalls or how to go home undamaged. And now it's taken this same path, but a different approach. It's about not just protecting the people I work with. I want people to be able to protect their families, protect their livelihood, or their lives. How many people you think died in California when they lost power for 3 weeks? Or you're talking about this snowstorm where didn't you guys lose a couple hundred people in San Antonio?
Yeah, absolutely.
Unnecessary and unacceptable. We don't need to lose people because we're not prepared. We just need to be prepared.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to think about it. My dad lives in Deer Lodge, Montana, and if the grid goes down, he's in trouble. He's got some age on him. He's the one who taught me how to survive.
Yeah.
But he can't do it anymore. Yeah. And it's like, if the grid goes down, I know I can't get to him. And it weighs on me. And I don't know anybody that would check in on him.
Yeah. Well, we keep talking about, like the grid going down or, this freak snowstorm.
Simple power outage, yeah.
Simple power outage, right? I remember back in, the early 2000s, or even like the late 90s, all the elderly that were dying in the city of Chicago during the summer heat.
Heat. Yeah.
It's just standard heat. Chicago doesn't get really hot, guys. Like maybe 90s, maybe hundreds every now and again. But what do you do? What do you do when it's 110 and for long belts of time, and you don't have AC, you don't have all these different things. Like, these are survival things at the simplest form.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to navigate that because nobody's coming to help.
Yep.
Nobody's coming to help.
Well, I want to be able to help.
Yeah. So, let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm intrigued by the idea of, creating content that is going to be showing, or instructing people on these basic ideas of survivalism. But is the idea to take them potentially through, like, here's an intro, and then, I want you to go do the 3-day, and then I want you to do a 7-day out in the wild. Is that the order of affairs in which you're
basically, I want to do, like, exactly right. I want to do an intro and people are very visual. So you just show them a backpack that is just a small backpack, like you have here, that size backpack. I really don't want to go much bigger than that.
Right.
And just go piece by piece. This is what you should put in this backpack. You need, water. You have to have water. This little tiny, skinny, lightweight space blanket, you can cover yourself. It'll keep you dry. It'll keep your body heat in. And here's, I'm also working with some people that have these MREs, these meals ready to eat, not your basic standard military MRE. These things are based on what the human body needs for nutrition. Mm-hmm. And I'll be introducing those as a tool to put in this backpack. A couple meals that you can stretch out and make last a while. You don't want to weigh yourself down with a refrigerator. Yeah. You want to have a couple things that will last you. But a means to drink water, a means to stay dry, a way to make a fire, and how to stay out of the elements. Yeah. I want to show this kid with the shoelaces and have him make a fire right in front of you. For the backpack, maybe just the strikers. Yeah. For that quick, easy.
You even like the education on basics of using a tourniquet.
Yep.
My God.
First aid. Yeah.
Right. First aid. I don't know how many people you put a tourniquet in front of them, or say just make a tourniquet out of a belt.
And they have no clue.
Around. I don't know. Well, right. You just lost your leg, buddy.
I had a conversation earlier today with one of your staff about, you have to be able to be fun with it. Yeah. It can't always be gloom and doom. Yeah. You have to have
fear
fun.
Porn.
Right. But you have to teach a little bit of that wilderness basic first aid too. Hey, your kid broke a leg. Sorry, don't know first aid. That means more to eat for us later. Yeah. You're gonna have to stay behind. You're on your own, kid. Right. You can't be that way. You have to be prepared for, those types of things. It's not a scare tactic. You go hiking with your kids in the mountains, and somebody breaks an ankle. What do you do? Right. Are you prepared to handle that situation? And if you're not, there's a problem. Right. And I want to resolve that problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that's trying to saw my arm off because I'm trapped in a rock.
From getting stuck in a rock. Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Every time I think about it, that just grosses me out.
But I am that guy that carries like a tool with me that if I do need to, it's going to be sharp and I will be able to cut my hand off.
Yeah. I think the grossest thing I ever did to myself was in the military. I got hit and had a couple of my teeth broken. Yeah. And I take out my Leatherman, I snap out that file, and I'm filing my tooth because it was cutting into my. And it hurt. I mean, it was so. How sensitive. Nerve, You put metal on it, and you're scraping away at it. And I filed my tooth to keep it from cutting into my mouth. And when I finally got back to the dental office on base, he said, "What did you do?" It's like, it hurt, but I had to.
Right.
This
is field expedient, Doc.
Yeah, not the whole thing on Wilson where he stuck the rock and he broke out his tooth. Right. Tom Hanks thing, and I haven't had to stitch myself up. But I don't know that I'd really relish the idea of cutting off my own arm. To survive. But I think your mind can wrap around when it comes to you coming face to face with, if I don't do this, I will die. Yeah, and I have to be prepared. And it's like you can tourniquet off above that thing and make that part of the body go so numb that it doesn't feel it. Yeah. And then you have to get through the whole mind bending, okay, now I'm going to have to cut that? Yeah. You saw through it and break through the bones? That's a rabbit hole. I'm not interested in really living that too often, in my head.
Me neither. Like I watched that one movie with the two girls that climbed to the top of that radio tower.
I haven't watched that yet.
Oh, it's terrible. Like it's great. It's great, but
is it gonna upset me?
It's upsetting because you're like, how could you be so dumb? And then you're like, it's a movie. It's
Right.
written this way. But you're constantly saying that. But and then there's like the anxiety. I got more anxiety from that movie just because of the decisions and the things are like, oh my God, these are terrible.
And you think about the height,
Yeah, first of all, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I have a thing about that now. I don't like thinking about the few seconds of free fall before it's like, hey, that ground's getting close. It's about over now.
That's I've learned that very quickly. I did some skydiving, and I really realized that Marines are not meant to fly.
The first time you skydive is the longest free-falling swear word that you'll ever utter. I promise you.
Yeah, that was, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
But again, it's, fear, when it comes down to that, death or serious bodily harm, right? You will find that your mind will take you to places that you're able to do some incredible things to yourself, and most importantly, you're able to get over some incredibly large obstacles.
Agreed.
And it's again just making sure that you don't need to be experts in all these things.
No.
You just have to have a basic knowledge, right?
Yeah.
A basic knowledge. Okay, I basically need to understand to stay dry and stay warm. Okay,
And keep hydrated.
right? Keep hydrated. To meet those three objectives, what's the basics that I need to understand and the basics that I need to be carrying in my go bag or my car or whatever the circumstances of the situation. I'd be fascinated, for those that are listening that maybe don't know this, what is the difference to you between like your go bag and like a 3-day bag versus an assault bag, right? When you have your bag that say you have your camp, right?
Right.
But you're going out and you're foraging, right? Are you going to take your whole pack to go out and forage? Or are you going to take a smaller pack to go out and do this? What are the values of size and things of that nature?
Well, size matters. If you watch the show, it's funny that you asked that, because if you watch the show, I have a big, giant 92-pound backpack that I carry. But within that backpack is a small day pack. And all I have to do is drop my big, large backpack, which has my sleeping bag and just those, just the gear that for setting up a camp, and like casting materials and some of those heavier things that I know I don't need for a quick day or two run. All I have to do is just drop that pack, open up the top flaps, drag out my day pack, close it back up, secure it, put that small backpack on, and roll.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's like you just said, what is the 3-day pack and your big, huge bug out kit? Well, the difference is this pack should fit inside this pack.
Yeah. Yeah. One supports the other,
Yep.
And you're able to, again, it's speed, it's time, it's distance. It's all these things that our energy sucks against you when, resources are finite.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
So this is these are just the questions that you should be asking yourself if you're listening to this program, or maybe you're all listening saying, well, we're fucking idiots.
Could be a lot of everything.
Yeah. So but I'm excited to see you start developing this content and pushing it out for the world, to consume and hopefully learn some things that are again just basic items, basic ideas that we should have a general understanding about. So Russell, you've got an incredible background. You're in Hollywood. You got a military background. You're a survivalist. You're creating content. Some of that content is digital.
Right.
The other side is written novel. You're a writer. You're an author.
Yeah.
My goodness. Like, where do you find the time?
I don't know. I think just like you, getting out of the military, you don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
There's no slow button on me. It's either Mach 1 or sleeping. That's about it. I wrote a couple books, one while I was going to college. I got out of the military, went straight into college, did 4 years of college, and I still didn't know how to slow down. So I'm taking credits and full-time student and writing a book at the same time and working.
Yeah.
And it was just, I had to take up that quiet time after getting out of the military.
Yeah.
So put together a couple books or novels, and they're themed on Bigfoot, of all things. Fictional, it's basically based on if a guy was up in the woods and he encountered and basically got drawn in and began to live with him.
Mm-hmm. Like Harry and the Hendersons?
Kind of like Harry and the Hendersons. In fact, I know the guy who played Harry in Harry and the Hendersons.
I want his autograph.
Yeah, he's awesome. He played for the LA Lakers, just a super cool guy. Duwan Scott.
Yeah.
Lives in LA. In fact, next time I get into LA, I will have another sit down with him. Great guy.
That's
absolutely great. But it's more of a, what I am is, it runs parallel with my life. I grew up in Montana, survivalist, woodsman. And this character goes into the woods, encounters, and gets stuck staying with them. And everything reads absolutely real because everything, all the background, the mountains, the caves, the rocks, everything are real.
Yeah.
And they're places I have been. So I write it from a first-person narrative and interacting. The only thing that's not real is the characters, the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Creatures in this story.
That's fantastic. Any training? Like you just I'm just gonna write.
None. I just started putting one word after another. It made sense to me.
Yeah.
Had an editor, just kind of go through it and make sure that it wasn't, too awful. Clean up some of the grammar and the writing bit, but no training at all.
That's incredible. Yeah.
But I wanted to tell this story, and I've got 2 of them out now. Footprints of a Legend and Bigfoot and the Tripwire.
Yeah.
And the third one, it's a trilogy. The third one is almost done.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is following the same character that's just living with the Bigfoot?
Continuity. Yeah.
Really?
And I have people very upset with me that I haven't got the third book out yet.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right.
You haven't read it yet in all your free time?
Dude. Audiobooks.
Audiobooks.
It's on my list.
I think that's what I need to do is audio. These would be great for a trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. So is the third one going to be like footprints of the legend, Bigfoot and the tripwire? So I'm imagining like he's trying to set the trap. Is the third one like he's like they've been living together, they're friends, and like the town's coming with pitchforks and torches, and he's going to save Bigfoot?
Maybe. It's nothing like you would think it would be. It's very, very. It feels real.
Yeah.
It feels real, and it's nothing crazy and outlandish, and it's not humorous. There's some of it. When I set out to write this thing, no idea what I was going to do. I thought I want to tell this story that's been going on in my head forever. I want to write this thing out. I want my reader to get very upset.
Yeah.
I want them to get emotionally involved. I want to make them laugh. I want to make them feel frustrated. I want to get every emotion I can out of these people, and if I can make them cry just once.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've had readers that call me. The one that stands out in my mind is a biker from back east here. He was a sergeant of arms, so it means that he's the muscle of the group. And he called back and he said, "You write this book?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And I'm thinking, you don't have my address, do you? Because you sound kind of mean. But he told me, it was the funniest thing. He told me, he said, "I just want to let you know, loved your book. It made me cry. It's the first book that's made me cry in probably 30 years." And I'm like, great. You don't have my address, of course, right?
Are you holding that against me?
Yeah.
Is that what you're
It was
calling me?
great, though. It was just kind of, it confirmed that I was able to put that emotion into it.
Yeah.
And they responded to it.
Yeah.
So it was.
No, that's good writing, man. It's good writing.
it was
I'm definitely excited to.
You're
get my
going
hands
to
on
read it and think, man, this book is crap. What was he talking about?
Well, I could barely read.
I'll get it in audio for you so you can read on one of your trips.
Well, yeah, to Russell, I got to say, to me, Bigfoot is very real.
Yeah.
It's been quite the pleasure, sharing some time with you today and getting to hear it straight from your mouth and all the cool things and more importantly, like what you're going into next and where you want to take, your brand, the Russell Acord brand, and education, right? Giving people the tools that they need to navigate this incredible world that we live in.
Right.
I think that we need more content like that rather than the drumming propaganda on TikTok that we see of young kids today. And I understand you've got some social media of your own that's where you're putting a lot of the content that you're creating.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
Right now, it's just the introduction. It's Sage Walker Survival. I have a TikTok channel. I have Sage Walker Survival on Instagram. I also have Sage Walker Survival on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's still, right now it's introduction stage. So I'll start driving traffic there when I start putting more content on because I want that introduction. And it's not one of those things that's only for the mechanic. It's only for, I think this is a topic that should be for everyone.
Yeah.
From teenage kids to the adult group to everybody who, I think it will fit everybody.
Yeah. Yes. It's a dinner table conversation.
Yep. It's necessary. It should be necessary.
Absolutely. Well, where can people find your show?
We're on Discovery.
Yeah.
We're on Discovery Plus. It used to be Travel Channel, and then Discovery and Discovery Plus got together, and then now Warner Brothers merged with it. So Discovery Plus it can be found, and Discovery Channel.
Fantastic.
So
fantastic. Well, I am absolutely excited to see more of what you're doing out in the world. I am a big fan of yours. Last question I have for you.
all right, let's do it.
Skinwalker Ranch, what do you think?
I live 30 miles from there.
Son of a bitch. I'd like this guy even more.
I live.
When can I come visit?
I'll tell you what. When I get back home, we'll talk because I'll talk to. Okay, so the guys that are on the show,
Yeah.
Thomas Winterton is a really good friend of mine. In fact, he's helping me with my LLC and all this stuff with for the channel I'm getting started. Very, very intelligent man, really good, decent friend. He actually has contact with the owner of the property, Brandon, and he asked one time if I could go on property, and we spent the better half of a day there, and I got to see everything on that ranch. And it's like how I said earlier about nobody questions why a compass points north. This property is one of those places that has a different energy of its own. It is different. And to get permission to go on that property is an act of Congress.
Yeah.
It really is.
Oh, yeah. It was run by the government for 20 years.
So I'll ask Thomas if there's ever a time when we could bring you to see the property.
Oh, that would be incredible.
And if he ever gives me that permission, if we ever get a green light on that, then I'll let you know. But I mean, clearly can't make any promises. I will never speak for him or the owner of the property.
Sure.
But if he will ever allow it, then I'd be happy to make that happen. And 9 out of 10 times, it's always a good, solid, hardcore no.
Yeah.
But if it ever becomes a yes, I will ask and see what he says. But we would never tell anybody when you're going to be there because we don't want an audience.
Yeah.
I say we. I don't mean it that way. I'm sure he wouldn't want the audience.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Right.
It's fascinating. I think they're on the verge of proving that wormholes exist.
There's a different vibe there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And people say, I just want to jump the fence and go check it out. I'm going to tell everybody that's listening, worst idea on the planet.
Yeah.
There are cameras on every dark corner of that property. You will never get across a fence without being greeted by something you do not want to be greeted by.
Yeah. I do notice that the head of security has great taste in apparel.
Dragon, absolutely.
He likes to wear
Is he wearing the
Grunt
gear?
Style. Yeah.
Is he? I'll have to check now. Great guy.
Yeah.
Really, really.
It's one of my favorite shows, and I'm I'm waiting for the next season to drop. I got to know more. I got to know more. Because just the history of it. Going back to some of the previous owners and the CIA and the government running operations and science studies out of that property. That tells me that there's something bigger than what we all think there.
Right.
So
more than meets the eye.
It's quite fantastic. Well, Russell, it's been quite the jam, my friend.
It has been.
I appreciate you very much. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being a good model for our veteran community, going and showing that you're not what you are with you're more than your service. You can go out and do more, and your service is just a part of your life, a chapter that gives you the things to move forward. And you are obviously doing that, and you're doing it very well.
Thank you.
So you're a great example for all of you out there listening. And again, I hope all of you have enjoyed this program. Russell Acord, you've heard it from the man himself. Go check out his social media. He's an interesting fellow, and he's got a lot more up his sleeve that he's going to be doing and putting out here in the future. So we'll be watching from here at American Grit, and we hope that you'll be watching from your place at home or wherever you are. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. Be kind to one another. Wash those stinking hands. We'll see you soon.